recorded. So if you ever want to go back and look at it later, if you miss something, then it'll be on our social media platforms, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, I believe we're still on that, Instagram, all those things. My name is Allison Brazelton. I'm a therapist at TurningPoint, and I want to welcome everybody and thank you so much for joining us today. Again, like Lisa said, if you have any questions, type them in the Q&A box. We will get to them as we go throughout, and then at the end as well. And then, yeah, like Lisa said, if anyone has participated or is currently participating in intermittent fasting, go ahead and just kind of tell us about that. Yeah, and then we'll kind of go over those when Lisa gives us that chance. And then before I turn it over to Lisa, just want to remind everybody that TurningPoint is a 501c3 nonprofit that depends on community support. And so we're just so thankful for all of our partners that help us along the way and allow these events to be possible. So without further ado, we have our presenter here, Lisa.
Hey there.
Hey.
Hey, welcome everybody. And I'm looking at some of the replies in the chat. So I am Lisa Hubbard, and I am here today. I'm the dietitian over at TurningPoint, and I am going to talk about this new phenomenon called intermittent fasting. And so I appreciate, I want to know, who's doing it out there? Why are you doing it? The interest that you have in it, because it is the new hot topic out there in the diet world or the eating world. And it seems like it's cyclical. We go through all these different diets and different plans. And, with that being said, I think that we understand and we know that there's a million ways to skin a cat, and there's a million different reasons that we follow different eating habits. So hopefully today, we'll clarify what it is, some good and some bad with it. Like any other diet, this one is not the be all do all. It works for some and it doesn't work for others, and sustainable for some and obviously not sustainable for another group of people. So, so let me just kind of breeze through. I'm just looking at some of these. I see a lot of you that they've tried, like one for, let's see, medical menopause, comparing to Weight Watchers, trying to manage weight. The topic, heard a lot about it. Yeah, but we don't know a lot. Weight loss. Okay. Sticking and maintaining to it. Got out the habit. All right. Okay, so at any given point, you're welcome to throw something in the chat if you have questions. I like a live audience in front of me, but I can't see you guys. So we'll just make the best of this. And so throw in any questions that you have. If I don't see it, Allison will hopefully catch that and stop me. But all right, so we're going to talk about our intermittent fasting. Okay. There's different ways. I don't say there's so many different ways, but really there is so many different ways to follow intermittent fasting. And so really what intermittent fasting is, there's really this is what it's known for. So intermittent fasting is just exactly kind of what it is. It's intermittently restricting energy intake. All right, so you are going through periods of time where you are saying, no, I'm going to eat only at this time and this time, between this time and that time. And basically it's a cycle. It's a cycle of voluntarily fasting, not eating, and then non-fasting, which is eating. Okay. There's different types of fasting. You have, and this is different from a fast for religious reasons. Okay. That's not what I'm here and talking about today, but what we're going to talk about is just like the different ways. And so, when people think of intermittent, when it came out, I'm like, oh my God, starvation, deprivation. I'm not good with I'm not good with that. And then I'm thinking, me being a runner, how can I do this? Or why would I do this? And can it help what I'm doing? Could it benefit my sport? So there's some good research out there and there's not so good research out there. So we're going to kind of just clarify. So we have different types of fasting. So we can start off with the alternate day fasting. And that's what it is like you have a normal diet. The key is normal diet on day one. And then you have completely fast and have small meals like really less than 500 calories like the next day. So some people will do alternate that way. Some people will cycle that way, and some people will choose. And it's basically what you feel most comfortable with. So you can have day one, a normal diet, day two, restrictive, day three, normal, and so on and so forth. But what the key is, what this diet is really trying to do, or what it's doing, is it's kind of tricking our body into, when we go into that kind of a semi, not total starvation state, semi-starvation state, that we're starting to burn fat calories. And so we will lose, I hate to use the word lose fat, you'll lose weight with that, okay? But that's what it dips into. The thing is, when we dip into our fat stores, it's not the preferred source of energy, long distance, for a long time. And so, like for someone who's like, I'm not going to eat for, 5 days, or I'm going to skip for 3 days. And that's a completely different type of fast, and different things happen. So this is intermittent. This is a small little bit period of time that we are going to kind of make our body use the fuel that it has to support itself. Okay. So alternating days, we can do that. Anyone can do that. That one, I don't know. That one is, people do have good results with that one. I think that's a little bit more challenging, but personally, I'm just speaking for myself. I could think all of them are challenging, but all right. So we'll have that one. We have that option. Then what we have is, you can do a normal diet for 5 days. We pick 2 days out of the week, and they are not back-to-back days. So that can be like, generally, it's a good day is our Monday. All right. Because we kind of pay for the weekend, or we kind of work off the weekend, and then a Thursday. A lot of people like that 2-day fast, and it's the same type of case scenario, is that you have 2 days that are very, very, very restrictive in calories, like 500 calories or less, preferably about 500 calories a day. So in that one, we don't do those days consecutively. We never really do 2 days consecutively of these very low calorie days. Okay. So that's one take home thing that I want everyone to know, to realize, is that if we're going to do this, and you're going to do it, we're going to do it the right way. And we're not going to compromise our body and throw it into a starvation mode. And when we hit a starvation mode, instead of us burning our fat as energy in these small incremental intermittent fasting, what happens then, our body will flip into that starvation. And so it will start slowing down the metabolic rate, and it will slow it down, and it will adjust to what you're taking in. So if it's like, I'm going to eat 500 calories, or, fast for like 3 days and eat nothing, every day, and you're putting it such a detriment that your body will start to kind of hoard and hold on to what it has. It switches then it goes into a preservation mode. And it's like, I don't know when she's going to feed me next. I don't know, like, if I've been kidnapped and in the back of a station, I don't know. So it will start holding on to that. And then what happens then, your metabolic rate will adjust to the calories that you're taking in. And that's what we do not want to happen with this intermittent fasting. We do not want that to happen, because once it gets adjusted to eating 500 calories a day, or just 800 forever, then your body will adjust. And so it's like, okay, now I have trained my body to eat 800 calories a day. What happens then, you can have some weight loss, but then it stops. And then, you reach your goal. Say you reach your goal of, you want to lose 20 pounds, 30 pounds. Then what happens is it's used to only 500 calories. And then we go out on the weekend and we start eating 1,200 calories. And maybe one day it's 1,500 calories. And the other day it's 1,800 calories. With our increase in calories right away, it does not automatically increase our metabolic rate. So anything above that 500 calories then starts getting stored, and it doesn't get stored into your muscles. It gets stored into your fat cells. So this is like the take home message, and I'll probably repeat it 100 million times throughout this course of this, but that's what I want you to remember is Intermittent fasting is exactly that, intermittent. It's not a forever fasting, and it's not like, I have a wedding coming up in a month and I need to, lose 40 pounds. It's not that. So that's the second way of fasting. And a lot of people like that way as well. Oh wait, I missed one. I know this is it. So this is it. It's like a daily timing fasting. And what you're doing is you're taking a period of the day and you are just eating in that window. And that seems to be the most popular way of this fasting. And so a lot of people will do, they break it down. And so it's like 18-6 fasting, meaning that they allow themselves, this isn't the most popular, but they eat for 6 hours of the day and then they fast for the rest of the 18. Okay. So for instance, like example, you would eat from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. and then from 6 p.m. until 12 the next day, you're going to be fasting, have nothing to eat. Or you can bump that up. You can, the thing about this is that you can shift that window any way that you want to shift the window. The key is with this also is that we don't break up that 6-hour fast, because that's what, 6-hour eating, because some people are like, well, I'll eat 3 hours here, then fast again, 3 hours here. And it's not really, it is, but it isn't the intermittent fasting. What we're doing is trying to have a longer period of time with the fasting. So the most popular is that 16-8, which is like they're fasting for 16 hours of the day. And then they're eating for 8. Okay. So it can be from 11 a.m. to 7. It can be from 10 a.m. to 6, however that you want to do that. So that one tends to be the most popular. I think I saw somebody say that they were doing that one. Okay, so yes, the fasting really is, that's a very good question. So the fasting is having 0 calories in that. So the intermittent, I guess it couldn't be really considered intermittent fasting when we have 500 calorie days. But that is, if you look that up, that is considered intermittent fasting. So that answers the question about, is fasting 500 calories or less? In this definition with the daily time one, the fasting is actually having 0 calories in that period. So the other one is just really basically probably cyclical calorie deprivation. So that's an extra. Okay, a great, someone said they are trying to lower cholesterol, LDL, and triglycerides. We will address that. That's a fantastic one, because they're doing research on all this as we speak and finding out different modalities and what's working and what's not working. Oh, hold on a second. I lost you. Okay. All right. So with that being said, so we can pick our plan. And what we need to do with our plan is that we need to make it as helpful as possible. So if we have those days when we asked, is really 500 calories fasting, what is 500 what does 500 calories look like? So 500 calories, what was that? Are you supposed to restrict? All right, so yeah, I'll answer that question. All right, so let's go into the questions and then I'll elaborate. The next slide. So what does this mean, or what not to do? Let's cover this. And I touched this already. You have a 24, some people will think like, if I fast 18 hours, then 24 or 36 or 48 fasting periods are even better. And this is exactly what I was talking about messing up that metabolic rate and throwing your body into that kind of starvation. Because at a certain period of that fast, going 24 plus hours, your body will start to store fat instead of burn fat for energy. So longer periods of, really what they've said is longer periods of 18 hours, like going that, you can do, like I said, you can do the 18 hours, but longer than that of a fasting is not recommended, because it will it'll start that starvation cycle process. Okay, so how it works, intermittent fasting works by prolonged periods of your body, and it burns enough calories you consume during the day in your last meal, and it begins to burn fat. So it's kind of what they call that metabolic switching. It's hours without food and the body exhausts all the sugar or the energy stores, and then it starts to burn the fat. So that's the dynamic, and that's what we're doing. But again, if we go too long, it has the actual opposite of that. So we have a meal, and in that meal, your body takes the protein, the carbohydrates, and the fat and uses it. We know what protein is for. Protein is to help our body rebuild tissues and cells. Fat's important because fat not only helps with satiety, but fat also helps circulate those fat-soluble vitamins. So fat is important, okay? We talk about the different types of fat. We've talked about that in lecture before. So, fat is important, but saturated fat is one we can completely avoid, and our bodies will be fine, but we do need some type of fat. And then we have our carbohydrates, and carbohydrates are broken down into glucose, which is our main source of fuel or energy. When you take in a meal, your body will use some of that for immediate energy. What it doesn't need at that point, it will get stored in the muscle and the liver as glycogen. And then that is what we're trying to exhaust when we do these fasting, these periods without food, is we have our energy, we store the energy, and then when we're in that hunger or starvation, not really starvation, but in that fast period, that our body is using that glucose store as the energy. So it's going in and it's getting everything out, getting it all out, okay? So kind of like being negative at the end of the day. Instead of having positive stores of glycogen, we're kind of just at even. We're not negative, I shouldn't say negative, you're at the even keel, okay? So this metabolic switching, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to just consume the calories and no calories. So research, hold on one second. Research shows that it takes about, like if you try to do this, and you have to be patient, because it takes our bodies to about, it can take 2, it can take 4. I've had people take about 6 weeks to get accustomed to this intermittent fasting. Because what you are doing is you're depleting those glycogen stores. So it takes a while for your body to kind of shift. And once you get to that point, then you will be accustomed to it and you'll be comfortable, and you won't have these next couple periods of, like, you may, obviously, I think that we all know you'll feel hungry, you can feel cranky. If you're getting used to this new routine, you might feel bouts of like a low blood sugar because you might not have eaten enough in that time frame of when you're feasting and you're famine. So we need to make sure that in that in that period of 6 or 8 hours, 8 preferably, that you are getting enough of what you need. So it's a good equal balance. And those who make it through that adjustment period, if any of you have done this for a period of time, then you start to balance, to even out and balance out, and you start to feel better, period. And that's what some people will just do. Like, I just want to feel better, and that's great. And that's a good reason I want to lose weight. And these are all great, valid reasons, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do every diet out there, So this next slide is, what are we doing? So when we're not eating in that fasting, you can drink as much water as you want to, and I encourage lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of water, okay? And then 0-calorie beverages, meaning, black coffee, unsweet tea. And those are the 2 things that, I preferably. I really don't want you to slam back a lot of, diet sodas. There's a lot of, there's no calories, even if it's 0 calories. There's still a lot that, the research says that, it's kind of tricked your body thinking that is something sweet, and then that's when your insulin gets thrown out of whack. And so I prefer it just be straight up, like either water or like black coffee or unsweet tea. I wouldn't mind, like, that's basically it, really. That's all. Those 2 things on this diet. I was going to say like a sugar-free lemonade or any of that, but I prefer in this, no, because it's not tricking. It's not really doing it. That's sending us another signal to our brains and to our bodies that there's something kind of sweet out there, but it's not really sweet. So those 2 things. So, if you're a big coffee drinker and if you're like me, I like my half and half in the coffee. So that means 0, that means no coffee in the morning, because even with a little bit of half and half, your body will get thrown out of that fasting state. Okay. So unsweet tea and coffee or water are the best. And then during that eating period, we really want you to eat normally, okay? And that's why I put like these quotations, is because What is normal? Normal. Okay. Like I said, there is a right way and a wrong way to do all of this. And I've had people that are doing intermittent fasting, and it's like, they don't eat anything for 18 hours, and then or 16 hours, and those 8 hours that they're eating, it's like the Last Supper, and they're eating constantly, junk food, high calorie food. They're just like, oh my God, I'm starving. I'm like, I'm beyond the hunger point. And then they become mindless at that point. And where at that point, you need to be the most mindful. Okay. So eating normally in that period of time is the most important thing that you can do. And so a lot of people will try to take this meal plan or way of eating, and then they're like, well, if this is good for me, if I can lose weight doing this, then if I do it this way and then do like a ketogenic diet, then I'll have a double result. I'll have be like twice as fast. Absolutely not. The ketogenic diet is actually a fasting diet. We don't really realize it, but it is fasting, just like the Atkins diet. People didn't realize, but it is a fasting diet, or actually a calorie restrictive diet. Let me correct myself. So because, if you have a diet and say you are a carb junkie and you're eating all these carbs, and then you're switching that pendulum and you're like, I'm not eating carbs, now I'm eating all protein. Well, protein has less calories per serving. You know what? 1 ounce of a lean piece of chicken is about 35 calories. 1 ounce of a slice of bread. So basically a slice of bread is about 80, depending on what that slice of bread is. So if it's about 1 ounce, so you see there, like I can do 1 ounce of bread or 1 ounce of chicken. They're both 1 ounce, but the bread is going to give me a lot more calories. So in those diets, it's not necessarily the carbohydrates that are bad. Carbohydrates have more calories than protein. So those are, without you knowing, those are calorie restricted diet. And, protein for a lot of people they have more satiety with protein, because there's protein, there's a little bit of fat in there, and that keeps their belly full a little bit longer. We take a little bit longer to digest a protein and a fat than it does just a carbohydrate. That's why when we eat a balance of all of that, carbohydrates, protein, fat, we have the most satiety, where it sustains us a lot longer. If you think about yourself, or myself, if I just eat something that's just a carbohydrate based and that's it, I mean, I can burn through that pretty quickly, and it feels like I'm hungry in, short period of time. But if I have that carbohydrate and I have a healthy fat with it, and some protein, then I'm satisfied longer. Perfect example. Let me see. Like, I have people who are like, oatmeal. They're like, some people say, oh, it satisfies me, but some people are like, I kind of whip through that. I'm hungry. And that's understandable. It's just a carbohydrate. So, it's a great carbohydrate. It gives you amazing fiber, but we have to add those other components, protein and fat, with that in order to stay satisfied a little bit longer. So eating normally is like, that's kind of loose lipped, but what is really in this period of time, like really how should we be doing things? And that is basically the Mediterranean diet, plain and simple. All the research with all the diets out there, all the eating plans, the most credible and the best results, and for the healthiest regarding our heart health, even helps with cancer prevention, keeping our cholesterol in check, like all of that is the Mediterranean diet. And the Mediterranean diet isn't anything very hard or restrictive, but it is complex, unrefined carbohydrates, such as whole grains. So I want to kind of touch base on that. When I talk about, carbohydrates and they're good for us and we need them, people automatically hone in on like those refined carbohydrates. They think of like, oh my God, I don't want to do bread. I don't like bread. I don't want to do pasta. They think of those kind of things. Whereas what we're talking about is the unrefined, see that's key, unrefined carbohydrates and whole grains. We are talking about things such as, you have brown rice, you have quinoa, you have millet, you have farro. Those types are more of your complex carbohydrates. Or things like, you have vegetables that have carbohydrates in them, your fruits. The worst thing that people can do is eliminate fruit from their diet when they're following such like a keto diet, or fruit and vegetables, I should say. But basically it's fruit, because fruit has more carbohydrates than a vegetable does, unless it's a starchy vegetable. So eliminating those fruits are not the best thing to do, for the fact that if we are trying to eliminate carbohydrates, I understand that, but that is the wrong carbohydrate to eliminate, just for the fact that with all the cancer prevention and just heart health and everything else, we always encourage plate full of fruits and vegetables. Okay. Mostly vegetables. A lot of people are more vegetable heavy than fruit heavy, and it doesn't matter. But what we're missing, these are cancer fighter foods. Our biggest thing is fruits and vegetables. Pretty much all of them have potential to fight and protect us. Fight cancers. They can help ward off heart disease. They can help with diabetes. They can help all these things. And in the cancer realm, we always say, and we talk about eating a rainbow of color and getting all that in. And what we're talking about, each fruit and vegetable has a different color. So we have our orange and yellow and green. We have our white, and they all provide, that color is provided by the phytochemicals that are within it. So, and those phytochemicals, what we've discovered, is that they have some health benefits. They are really they're called phytonutrients today. And so, I always like to like throw out there when you have a live audience, it's like, they're different than vitamins and minerals. Okay. So if we think of, fruits and vegetables, if we think of like an orange, we automatically think of, generally I ask people and they're like, well, vitamin C, or what about, what about a banana, like potassium is a given. And then I'm like, well, what about an apple, or what about watermelon? And they're like, well, nothing, it stumps them, and they're thinking more vitamins. But an apple is higher in quercetin, that's the phytonutrient that's in it, and that is a cancer fighter. It's a heart protector. And then, the lycopene that's in the watermelon, not to mention watermelon is very high in vitamin C. So those are the things when we're talking about those complex carbohydrates that we want you to consume in a Mediterranean diet. This picture is perfect. Like in the middle, they have on their plate, they have a complex carb. The whole grain are the chickpeas. Then they have, their complex carbs of your fruit, your vegetables. We want you to get green leafies in. We want you to get healthy fats in. What are healthy fats? Healthy fats are your mono, mostly monounsaturated, some polys, though we get enough polys in our given day, but the monos have more omega-3s in them. So, your olive oils, your omega-3s, so your healthier fish, like your fatty fish, are higher in omega-3s. So we want healthier fats that way. The one fat, and we say healthy, so the one that's not so healthy, and I said it earlier, is your saturated fat, and that's in your proteins that are, for instance, like your skin on your chicken. Chicken is great. The skin on the chicken is where your saturated fat is. Okay, and that's inflammatory, clogs our arteries, not good at cellular level. All the marbling, like if you have a ribeye steak, like when you got to eat like this beautiful ribeye, they're beautiful, but high in saturated fat. All that marbling, and that's what we look for. Marbling is a saturated fat. So, and then those healthier fats, and that is your oils, your olive oil. You can do avocados are a great source of those monos. Your nuts and seeds are a great source, as well as your healthy fats. Of healthy fats. Okay. And then your lean proteins. Okay. And lean proteins, they just doesn't have to be, chicken, skinless chicken and fish. There are other sources. We have, the best ones, like your turkey, fattier fish are great. Those will give you, they're not fatty fish. They do have more omega-3s in them. They do have more fat in them, but they're not fatty with the saturated fats. So, you can have red meat in your diet, and it can be a leaner portion of that. The American Institute for Cancer Research, what they recommend as far as red meat consumption is that, they say it's okay, but they want you to have no more than 16 ounces of cooked red meat in a week's time. So periodically throwing in something that is a leaner protein or leaner source of beef or pork is okay. Just don't go over that guideline. And that's what the research is recommending right now as far as with cancer prevention and to decrease recurrence rate. Okay, so having a healthy, well-balanced, and if we look at all of these little plates here on this, I chose it because they are all different examples of how we can throw things in. And it's as simple as, like, it sounds silly, but it's as simple as like maybe slicing up some tricolor peppers and just putting them on your salad, or putting them on the side of the plate, like there's on the side of the plate. Or, oddly enough, is like purple onion is a good one. You can do that, and because that counts. All that, you think of onion as kind of as an herb almost. Sometimes it adds a lot of flavor, but it can actually, you can take an onion and bake it in the oven and eat it just like that with your meal, or put it on a potato, or throw it in all this, and that is giving you some good, healthy, good phytonutrients. It's the same as like with garlic. Garlic has fantastic health benefits. Yes, salmon is considered a fatty fish. The other fatty fish that are out there, salmon, tuna, mackerel are your fat. Those are the top three out there. That was a good question. I'm going to check the other question. There was one more I didn't see. What was a question? I was wondering how many days. Oh, very good question. All right. So in intermittent fasting, right? That was the next question. Is intermittent fasting a lifelong thing? Okay. Oh, these are excellent questions. I'm sorry I'm kind of going back. Okay. Would you like me, you can't answer my question. All right, so let's just hit that really quick. So is this a lifestyle diet? That was basically the last question. It all depends on what you're comfortable with, actually. I know that I couldn't do it for any length. I've not even tried it, so I should not say. I am one that what works for me is I fuel constantly throughout the day. That's me. This way of eating is not conducive for certain populations. One, if you're pregnant, one, if you're nursing. The other one is really, it's still out there about diabetics, and just for the fact that, with glucose medicine or blood sugar medicines that are involved, and with what we're trying to do since the lack of insulin. So, we talk about this too. There's a lot of information about in the cancer realm. Like I've heard and had questions like, hey, I've read or I'm following this because someone told me that it has better, I have better outcomes with my chemotherapy. And I'm going to address that one in this next slide. Let me see this next question. So my 500 calories a day should be Mediterranean foods. Yes, that would be awesome. Okay, and I didn't answer my own question. What does 500 calories look like? So let's take on average when somebody gives me their diet recall and I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to calculate like really roughly in my head. So a serving of, I'm going to pick a plate. Let's look at this. I'm going to look at this middle plate that has the chickpeas on it. Okay. So when we look, and I'm going to pick things out. So broccoli, so the vegetables, period. Well, how we do this is like, how we estimate or guesstimate is vegetables, a half a cup cooked or 1 cup raw is a serving. Okay. We'll say say on this plate, overall, I'm going to say there's probably 2 cups. There's tomatoes, there's onions, there's broccoli. That looks like yellow pepper. The green leafies don't count in that. Those are 2 cups in itself is a serving of green leafies. So really we say if they're raw, a serving is about 25 calories. Okay, give or take. This is when we're guesstimating. So I know broccoli has a lot less, some have a little bit more. So we say about 25. So if there's 2 cups of vegetables on there, say there's 2 cups, that's really about 100 calories, right? No, 50 calories. So a cup raw or half cup cooked. So there's 50 calories alone just in that. And then we look at the chickpeas or the legumes, and I throw those all in kind of the same category. Again, if you want to be exact, look at the label, or you can look it up. A Calorie King will be exact. So those legumes right there, we dump all of those in beans in the same category. If they're not flavored or like baked beans and stuff, they are about a half cup is a serving. And that half cup, we allow about 80 calories. Okay. So on that plate right now, I mean, I think that there is a cup of those. So that's about 160 calories. I'm going to guess. This is guesstimating. This is what, I'm not saying it's correct, like 100% accurate. And then we look, at other things, on that plate, there's not the lean source of protein on that plate. And this could be like the side plate of, her accompaniments. And then I would take the lean protein, and it could be the chicken, it could be fish, it could be your salmon, it could be mackerel, it could be tuna. You can, a good can of tuna, you can throw that on there. And that's going to be, about 35 calories an ounce. So there you have it. Fruit, for instance, a serving of fruit, which is, we say about a banana, that's about 4 inches, about like that. Or we say a cup of like cubed watermelon or cubed melon. Or we say like an apple, one that you can hold in the cup of your hand, like cup it in your hand, like about a tennis ball. Okay. Those all have about 60 calories. Okay. So when we're calculating that, that's where that comes up to be. So we can have a really good, question. Is it best to drain and rinse canned legumes? Yes. But to be completely, yes, the answer is that. All the sodium basically is in that liquid that we get that comes with it, with the legumes, so or the beans. So you have black beans, it's best, yes, to drain that and rinse that off, because you're getting rid of, and what you're getting rid of is a lot of the sodium, and we don't need a lot of that sodium. So to answer the question, yes, for an adult woman with sedentary lifestyle. What is the recommended calories per day? That is something that I calculate individually. And when with consult. So the question is, what is recommended calories per day for an adult woman that has sedentary versus active? What I do when I calculate calories and that for my patients / clients is that I base everybody on a sedentary lifestyle. And that's kind of like where you are, that's if we're sedentary, if we don't burn anything. I don't care if you're a marathon runner or what you work out, 7 days a week, then that's kind of a baseline. And then when you have activity, depending on what you're doing with that activity, if you're exercising because you want to be healthy, excellent. And we add those calories back in. If you're exercising because you want to lose weight, then I kind of do a ratio of so many calories you should burn, and then so many calories you should eat back in your diet. So it's just, I can't just give like a blanket statement with that one, because it's based on height, weight. Currently, that's what I do. So I do see patients, I do Zoom meetings, as well. So if you want that done individually, and for you specifically, I'll gladly do that. You just have to let Aurelis know, call the office, and let them know what is considered fatty fish. Okay. If I am skipping a question, I'll go back. I'm sorry. I just keep when they come in. All right. So let's hit on, okay, we know who shouldn't be doing this. And then I just want to touch a little bit on in the cancer realm, because this is new. I'm not sure how many of you are actively in treatment. If you want to throw out there, if you want to share that, you can, but there is, and I've had some people, I work a lot with cancer patients, and some of them, their doctor told them to do it, or, they read online that it's a good thing. And, but what we need and what we do as a dietitian, I base everything, it's scientific, it's evidence. It's not hearsay, and it's not based on one study here or one study there. It takes a lot before us as a medical community will say, okay, yeah, all right. So a couple of things that I had found, especially on this topic, were the, let's see, was the next, okay. Well, what it can protect. So this is something that they are working on and trying to prove, okay. They are saying that it can protect, it has potential to protect against chronic diseases, protect your organs against these chronic diseases, such like type 2 diabetes. So you have type 2 diabetes, they're researching this right now. That it's not recommended for diabetics. They're doing like clinical trials, but they're saying like if we do this intermittent fasting, you have less neuropathy, retinopathy, so on and so forth, keeping your kidneys pumping and fresh, heart disease, age-related neurodegenerative disorders, and then like even like inflammatory bowel disease. They're saying like, and they're saying many cancers can benefit from this. So, and it all is based on, we're still researching, but it's all based on, it's all like that question is like, what do you do when you're eating, like in your eating phase? You can have a diet. You can have somebody that has the most horrific diet and say, I'm going to start intermittent fasting, and they fast, but yet they have this horrific diet in those 8 hours. And so it's really not the benefit of the diet. They'll have no results, these positive results. They will still in that fasting, if they didn't overeat during that eating period, in the fasting, they will dip into the fat stores and burn a little bit, like pull out some of that, that energy. But overall, the diet should be something, our food should predict our health. So if you want to eat healthy, you'll feel healthy, you'll be healthy. If you want to eat more fruits and vegetables, like the Mediterranean diet, you're going to feel better than if you ate McDonald's in that 8 hours, or if you ate, people are like, oh, I eat Chick-fil-A, even eat Chick-fil-A during that period of time. So it is, and all of these studies right now, like what they haven't really done, a lot like human studies. So that's where, they study a lot on rats, bless the little rats, but they study that on rats, and it gives us a kind of a census of where we can go with further research, but they haven't really had these big populations in humans. So the one thing that, and I copied this, and I should have verbatim from, I think it was a cancer. I'll have to look which site, and I can cite it, but that the cancer diagnosis is unknown, because there's no high like qualified randomized trials with this. They have shown preliminary studies that suggest that prolonged fasting in some, not all, some patients who have cancer is safe and potentially capable of decreasing chemotherapy-related toxicities and tumor growth. However, additional trials are needed because this risk and benefit of fasting for patients with cancer is unknown, because we know it when we are undergoing any type of cancer treatment, our body is hypermetabolic and our body needs more, our body requires more. So if we're requiring this energy all the time and we automatically start fasting, then what happens? Like what happens? Are we able to get our calorie needs met in that period of time? So there are, we are still doing the clinical trials on that. I mean, working on that, and it's really not recommended. I do not recommend this for anyone that is undergoing any type of cancer treatment, unless they are, like I said, on the context of a clinical trial. So I would just be really err on the side of caution. I'm going to be very, 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 very cautious. That's all I can say, because some of these things can do more damage than good. And with that note, I went on to the breast cancer. All right. And what breastcancer.org, and what the results of a study, it's a very, like a one study, very early. It does seem promising. Okay. They're saying it seems promising. Still, it's important to remember that it's the first time any kind of study, and this is like, they're doing this on a human population, with a diet and disease that has been tested with people diagnosed with cancer. So just because one study has promise, it doesn't mean that it is across the board, because we do one study, we don't know what the results of that study are long term. So we have to go through multiple stages and multiple phases of the study. So some of them help with the activate the immune system to work with treatment and to fight cancer. That's what we're the aiming, what they're stating is saying, like, you know, if we're in that starvation state, it causes our body to immune response to be kind of more hypersensitive. And so then, like, when we have the chemotherapy, then it'll be just like take it up and just work extra hard and better results. So that information, if you want to go to the breastcancer.org, and then there's a link there that I did find some of this real helpful information on that. So one thing I'm going to do, like, that's like the last slide for my presentation, but I'm going to go back. We're going to address more questions because if I didn't, I want to make sure everybody gets heard and answered. Okay, hold on one second. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to go back. I'm going to just bear with me. If you have any other questions, throw them up there if I've not answered them. Okay. I want to know if from Holly, if that has worked with your medical menopause, being in the fasting, and who recommended that for you, if you don't mind helping me with that one. And so it's different than Weight Watchers. As we see, Weight Watchers is more a point system. This is, you know, this is just, you know, like a defined, you're eating in a certain period, you're not eating in another period. Okay. If you've done it and lost weight, share with me how much weight you've lost, because it does have potential. All right. So I didn't answer the question as far as, is this a lifelong meal plan? I can say no, but yet I can say yes. So for some that it works, and if we're in that window of opportunity of eating and we eat very healthful and we get all our needs met, absolutely, it's absolutely perfect to do that. And you'll get to a point where, you know, you're balanced. You know what to take in when you're eating, and then you know what, it's going to be that fine balance of taking in enough and then burning enough. You know, because you'll get to a point where you've reached your weight loss goal. Okay. And just because when you reach that weight loss goal and you go back to the normal eating, doesn't mean that you're going to gain that weight back. What it means is, like, you've gotten yourself to this point and it's good. And then now we take that Mediterranean diet, instead of eating it in 8 hours, we eat it throughout the day. So we have our breakfast and we have our lunch and we have our dinner, our supper, whichever we call it, and we go. So just because you're in that and eating, going back to eating a more traditional 3 meals a day does not mean that you will gain weight, unless you go back to your traditional way of eating, which is chips and donuts and all that kind of stuff. Okay. Let's see. Okay. And you can, you know, you said you got out of the habit and you're going to start over, and intermittent fasting can be one thing that you say, oh, like 1 week out of the month. You know, this thing, you can make it your own. The only thing that I say to watch out for and be very careful, you know, is to fast for more than 24 hours at a time. You know, on your own, you know, do 12 or 20, 24, you know, 48 and XYZ. So, be careful of that one. The one little bit of research I found on, PubMed, is that they were showing that some people that were following the intermittent fasting lifestyle, that their LDL actually increased instead of decreased. And I didn't get into the thick of what their hypothesis with that was. That was just a little bit, I read the abstract. So they showed that. So for you, Susan, that has said that you're trying to lower the cholesterol and LDL, just make sure when you're in that eating phase that, you know, you're watching your saturated fat content, and watching, you know, you can have too many refined carbohydrates that affects triglycerides. So be careful of that. And your saturated fats are, you know, your butters and margarines and, you know, coconut oil, those kind of things. All right. Oops, I passed some. All right. Cholesterol, 500 calories. Yeah. So 500, we talked about what 500 calories would be. So, I didn't really show you what a plate would be. So let me kind of calculate as I go along. All right. So if we have 3 ounces, let's pick 3 ounces of chicken. So 35, that's 35 calories per ounce. That's what we allow when we're guesstimating. So chicken, 3 ounces, and that's about 105 calories. Okay. Then we're going to do, like we showed that plate of vegetables. Let's do 2 cups of raw vegetables. So that's 50 calories. And then let's do like 1/2 of a cup or of a potato, or 4-ounce potato. We can, if you want to do sweet potato, either one is just equally as good. And that's about 80 calories. Okay, so that meal with 3 ounces of a protein, a lean protein, 2 cups of raw vegetables, and then or 1 cup cooked if you want to cook them. And then you have your sweet potato, or you can do the 1/2 cup of quinoa, or 1/2 cup rice. We kind of throw that all together, 8. So that meal in itself, that full plate is about 235 calories. So you would do that twice and then add a little bit more. So that's what we're talking about with 500 calories in that time, if that helps. Also, there's 500 calories in a large supersized French fry from McDonald's. I used to do that. They have that. It's 500 calories. So there's a right way, and then there's like not the best way, not the super right way. All right, let's see. Very good. You guys have amazing questions. So yeah, the lifelong thing, just like any diet meal plan, it should be something that you should sustain. And if you can sustain this and meet all your nutrient needs within that time frame, it can absolutely be something you can do for a lifetime. Okay, let me see. I'm going to get to this last question. Sorry. Do as many days. Yes, in the 18:6 fasting, you know, like I said, this is really, when people do this, they do it every day. It's every day, 7 days a week, week in and week out, week in, week out. Some people will choose to do this during the week and then be very mindful on the weekend. You know, it's a little bit harder on the weekend, but it's the same idea. You know, you make it what you want it. It's kind of just like, you know, doing the 2 days on and 1 day off. So you can do, you know, like Mondays, just kind of get over the weekend, and then you can maybe do it on Thursday to get ready for your weekend. But during those days that we're not fasting, that we're very mindful. And then during those days, you can do a Mediterranean diet, you know, but just keep those 2 days at 500 calories. Okay. All right. Let's see what other questions we have. I think that is it. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or we're right at the cutoff time here. Anybody else? No. All right. Well, if I've answered everything, I'd like to thank you guys for coming or joining in today. There's a good interest in this. I'm glad we kind of decided to start talking about this topic. If I didn't answer any of your questions, or if you have other questions, you can let them know, and they'll get those questions to me. Oh, there's one popped up. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, Valerie. You're so very welcome. I hope it answered questions. I hope it clarified. I hope it was helpful.
That was great, Lisa. Thank you so much. And
you're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, look at the time. We had so much interest, and everything you said was very informative. So very happy to be part of this one today.
Yay. Awesome. All right. Thank you guys for joining in.
Thanks, everybody. Everyone have a great weekend. Thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. Bye, everyone.